And you know, they pray 5 times a day, every day. And it's not a short prayer. It's a 10, 20-minute prayer with all the bowing and so forth. They face Mecca, of course. The government uses the Quran in their public policy. The Quran is basically the constitution of Saudi Arabia. The law of the land is the Sharia law. Sharia law is based on 2 things. 1, the Quran, and 2, what legal, or not legal, but what the religious scholars believe Muhammad, whom they believe to be the perfect Muslim, whatever Muhammad would say or do about any legal issue that came up. So the Sharia law is based on religion and the Quran. Now, one final daily or frequent reminder that the government is behind the religion. King Fahd was king when I was there. And this is a true kingdom. This isn't like England. I mean, the king is the king over there. King Fahd changed his title to the custodian of the 2 holy mosques. All the previous kings, King Fahd was the 4th son of Abdul Aziz to become king. All the previous kings were addressed as Your Royal Highness, but he adopted the title of I'm the custodian of the 2 holy mosques. It took me a little time to catch on to this when I got there, because on the English-speaking television, the announcers would say that his title so fast and with an Arabic accent that it took a while. But what they say is, on every single occasion when they talk about King Fahd, they would say, King Fahd bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, protector of the 2 holy mosques, met today with so-and-so. King Fahd bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, protector of the 2 holy mosques, said today, etc., etc. Now what I finally found out that they were saying is King Fahd bin Abdul Aziz, the son of Abdul Aziz, Al Saud, of the family of Saud, is the protector of the 2 holy mosques, Mecca and Medina. So there is no separation of religion and state in Saudi Arabia. It's not a theocracy, but it's awfully close to that. The king, anything he does, anything the king or the ministers do, must be in conformity with the Islamic religion. When we talk about King Fahd, we need to tell you a little bit about the royal family, because most people don't understand this. When I was there, there were probably 6,000 to 7,000 members of the royal family. The royal family is made up of the direct descendants, the children of Abdul Aziz. Abdul Aziz had at least 20 wives and over 100 children. And the male members, the sons of Abdul Aziz, are in the succession line to become king. King Fahd, when I was there, was the 4th son, and Abdullah, current king, is the 5th son. Now, these men are getting old now. They're in their 70s and 80s. Not all that old, but they're getting up there. They're getting up there. And when the sons of Abdul Aziz are no longer available, the line of succession goes to the grandchildren, the grandsons, not the grandchildren, but the grandsons. Now, there are 6,000 to 7,000 and more now members of the royal family, and only a small number of them have any aptitude or interest in becoming in the politics, maybe a few hundred of them. They become mayors and governors of the provinces and ministers and maybe ambassadors, and they work their way up and ultimately become in line to potentially become king. But that's just a few of them, not very many. Some of the people go into business. In the construction business, the royal family members are in line to get the lucrative jobs from their family members in the government. and some of them become fabulously wealthy. The majority of the royal family have to get along on a yearly stipend. $2 million for the male, $1 million for female. Now, most of us can get along on that.
As long as it's yearly.
That's on a yearly basis, by the way. Now, let me tell you a little bit about some of the personal experiences I have. I was flown to Arabia first class from Denver to New York. Something about my personal experiences. I get up close. From Denver to New York, and then non-flight from New York to Riyadh on Saudia Airlines. Now, flying first class, you can get awfully interested and accustomed to flying to the luxury and comfort of first class, particularly for long-distance flying. Two other things were of interest on the flight. One, it's a 12-hour flight, and you have time for 2 prayer sessions, one at nightfall and one at sunrise. And the announcement comes over the loudspeaker that it's prayer time, the call to prayer. And in the ceiling, there's a disc that rotates with an arrow on it that points to Mecca. And of course, that depends on where the airplane is in relation to Mecca at the time. Mostly at that particular moment would be to the south, maybe even to the little southwest. And the men then get their little prayer rugs out in first class. I don't think this goes on in coach, but in first class they get their prayer rugs out and they say their prayers. The other thing that was of some interest to me was that when we reached Saudi airspace, still had an hour or so to fly before we landed in Riyadh. The women in their form-fitting Western clothes got up, went into the bathroom, and emerged in the traditional Arabian clothes with their hair, with their scarf, and their long amorphous abaya, which is an ankle-length robe that they wear. When I got to Arabia, we all lived in a compound, huge compound, walled-in compound, gate-guarded, and I was put up in a 2-story, 10-room, walled-in villa. Beautiful, but much too big, much too big for one person to live in. My wife was going to visit later for a few weeks, 6 weeks, but I was there basically alone. And so it took me about 2 months before I convinced them to transfer me to an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, which was very convenient. It was within easy walking distance of an Olympic-sized swimming pool, lighted tennis courts, a library, cafeteria, and a small store. And that was quite an improvement. I still had to take a bus, a shuttle bus, to and from the hospital, which was a mile or so away, until I could buy a second-hand car. Then I was free to do it on my own. The hospital, it's a 1-floor hospital. Can you imagine a hospital without elevators? That came as a shock to me, but it's on 1 floor. It's probably 200 yards, maybe 300 yards square. The most beautiful thing you could ever imagine. You can't build a hospital like that in this country. I mean,